Juan Soto is the best free agent in this class by a mile. The Giants have spent many of the last off seasons trying to get the top talent that's been out there, Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Bryce Harper, etc., and failed. But why is it that the perception this year is that they may not go all in on Juan Soto?
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on the show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, been hosting this show since just prior to the 2019 season, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube, so check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. You can start the NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And where we get started is we're going to get to your mailbag questions that you asked late last week. I know there was some big news in Giants land with Randy Wynn getting a big job as vice president of player development. So we will get into that next week. But I didn't want to waste any more time in terms of not getting to these mailbag questions. And the Win news, it's not going anywhere. So anyway, getting to the mailbag questions, the first couple actually are about Juan Soto. And Glenn asks, why are we not going all in on Soto? Out of all the free agents we missed on, this guy will take the highest offer. We have the financial capabilities of outbidding everyone by $100 million. Kim is more affordable than Adames. Still have money to go after a top line starting pitcher and Soto too. And then Bearer Bonds says, since the Giants offered Ohtani the same $700 million contract he signed with the Dodgers, should they offer at least an equivalent NPV, I'm not exactly sure what that stands for, contract to Soto? If they have that kind of money to allocate to a big star, don't really see anyone after Soto that's worth that kind of money. And it's a fair point. I do want to point out, though, that the Ohtani contract is, it is true that, there was legitimate reporting that the Giants did, in fact, offer him the same deal that he ended up taking from the Dodgers. That structure, $700 million with $680 deferred, which is crazy, was Ohtani's idea. It wasn't like the Dodgers' idea. It was what Ohtani wanted to do. But it's worth pointing out that MLB and the Players Association calculate that deal as worth roughly $460 million, not $700 million. So because of all the deferred money and inflation, right? And so he's going to be paid $680 million in the 10 years after he's done playing for the Dodgers, which is wild. But think of it more like a 10-year, $460 million contract than a $700 million contract. So when it comes to Soto, I actually do think that Soto's going to get certainly more than $460 million. But one of the primary reasons is that he's younger, and so you add more years. Ohtani's contract was 10 years. For Soto, I really think he could get like a 15-year contract, which is it would be a record for a free agent in terms of duration. The Giants offered Bryce Harper when he was 26, 12 years. I think it was 12, 310, and the Phillies went 13, 330, I believe. And so, yeah, for Soto, he is also 26, and he just turned 26 like 3 weeks ago. So it is this rare combination of extremely young because he got to the big leagues when he was like 19 or younger. I think he was 19. And actually, he may have been 18. Okay, regardless, the point is, because he's so young, you can take that average annual value that, Aaron Judge got and Shohei Ohtani got, which is not, 700 divided by 10. It's more like 46 million a year. That's why I was referencing that. But if you take like 46 million a year and then multiply that by 15 years, it comes out to $690 million. So I don't think he'll get quite that much, but I do think that that this deal very well could end up in the 600 millions. I've got ESPN and MLB Trade Rumors and their predictions here. ESPN, Kylie McDaniel does these, and he's been pretty good over the years since he's joined ESPN. Predicted 13 years, 611 million. And MLB Trade Rumors has been doing this forever, and they predicted 13 years, 600 million. So each predicting 13 years. I really see it going 14, 15 years because, we saw guys like Xander Bogaerts get, he was like turning 30 and got like an 11-year or 12-year deal. So when you're 26 and it's a way to just make the total money more, I don't know. I could definitely see it. So all of that to say, why shouldn't the Giants go all in on this guy? I think that they should. It is not every day that you get a chance at a player of this caliber who is he'll be 26 for all of next season. So think about the prime years, like the peak years, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. You're talking like 6 absolute prime years of one of the very best players in the game. And yeah, so the other question is like about, the question about they could sign, from bearer bonds saying actually no, it was the first question from Glenn, says that Ha-Seong Kim more affordable than Adames, still have the money to get Soto and a top line starter, but not necessarily if Soto's going to command. I mean, in these predictions, ESPN and MLB Trade Rumors, they're 600 divided by 13 is 46.15 million a year. Kylie McDaniel, ESPN, predicting 47 million a year. So let's just call it 45. If the Giants right now are at 155 million, which is what Roster Resource estimates them to be, if they tender contracts to all of their arbitration eligible players, which is not a guarantee. And so that could cut back, and they could try to trade someone like a Robbie Ray and clear some money. But currently, 155 projected for next year. And if you add a $45 million contract, that's $200 million right there. And the Giants are reportedly looking to slash payroll. To what extent, we don't exactly know. But last year, we were talking a final payroll of about $206 million. So you don't, to answer Glenn's question, like you don't really have room to sign Juan Soto and Ha-Seong Kim, who will probably cost at least like $12 million a year, but it could be more than that, like could be up to 20, but somewhere in that range, and a top line starter as well, which, we're talking 25 plus million for another top line starter. So let's just say 15 for Kim, that would be 215 million, and then another 25, we're talking 240 million. So if they're trying to cut back from 208, then that's not true. So that could be why. But also Soto is just so good, and maybe you could non-tender some guys like a Mike Yastrzemski, or trade him and try to trade a Robbie Ray, clear some money. And in my opinion, yeah, like if I'm running a team, like, and I have the chance to get Juan Soto, I'm trying to get Juan Soto. Like, there's just no question, given his age and bat. He's just such an elite hitter, and I want that guy on my team for 15 years. probably the last 6 might not look so good, but the first 6, 7 are going to look pristine. So anyway, coming up in just a minute, we'll turn our attention to one of the players that was just mentioned, Ha-Seong Kim, and can the Giants become South Korea's MLB team? And many more questions coming up in just a minute. And before we get into them, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Select Quote, the World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics. The world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Select Quote is one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while Select Quote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. All right, here we go. More questions and answers. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. It's not been every day for me over the last several weeks, and I apologize for that. And I hope to be with you far more regularly moving forward. Kind of a personal issue that I'm not going to get into right now, but more questions and answers. Next one coming from El Hijo de Whopper Jr., who says, do you think signing Ha-Seong Kim would help the Giants become South Korea's MLB team, the same way the Dodgers are Japan's team? Obviously, to a lesser extent, since the quality of the players isn't the same. And the answer to that is definitely yes. I mean, you would have like the two best South Korean, as far as I can think, like the two best South Korean players. I mean, Jung-Hoo Lee hasn't proven himself yet. The Giants, Jung-Hoo Lee. I even had to clarify in case anyone's like, who's Jung-Hoo Lee? Because he, they signed him last offseason, the Giants did, and then he injured himself early on this season. But they gave him a contract in excess of $100 million. The projections on Jung-Hoo Lee for next year already, looking at Steamer on FanGraphs, look really, really good. And he's only 26. And so think about imagine Soto 26, Jung-Hoo Lee 26. Like, you think of Soto as like this veteran, but he's only 26 years old. But anyway, yeah, Ha-Seong Kim, I think he just makes all kinds of sense for the Giants, especially because, as we'll get to in a minute, one of the, a shortstop just in general makes all kinds of sense. And Willy Adames is the other obvious player out there at this position, but he comes with the qualifying offer attached to him, which, as we'll get into later on, there are kind of sharp penalties for that, given that the Giants were a luxury tax paying team in 2024. And so, Ha-Seong Kim, certainly would help the Giants become South Korea's team. I mean, not everybody, but anybody in South Korea who is following these players, and they do have a following, would be watching the Giants, and it could help you in the same way that, Japanese, like right now, Roki Sasaki is a Japanese star pitcher who's coming over to the major leagues this winter. And the Dodgers are just considered the heavy favorites. And a big part of that is that they have Shohei Ohtani, they have Yoshinobu Yamamoto, like two of the biggest stars to come out of Japan. And Ohtani's like the biggest star in Major League Baseball, let alone Japan. Part of why they're considered the favorites yeah, it's winning. They just won the World Series, and they always win a lot of games every year. But I don't know. Yeah, definitely it could have an impact, and it would be fun because I honestly think it's going to happen that the Giants will sign Ha-Seong Kim, but we shall see. There was a report earlier this month, that the Giants were focused on signing Ha-Seong Kim. So we'll see. But the big reason, I mean, you're talking cost savings because that's apparently a thing that they're worried about, but also it's the qualifying offer. So the next round of questions, the first one comes from Aiden, who says, how much weight do you think, or do you or the Giants put on CBT draft pick compensation? So CBT is competitive balance tax, also known as the luxury tax. Aiden says, to me, it makes no difference if you're going top tier, but it comes into play when going for Adames, qualifying offer, or Kim, no qualifying offer. A second plus a fifth round is no mean deal. I don't know exactly what no mean deal means, but I basically agree with you 100%. There are two other questions, but right off the bat, I'm just going to say I agree. To me, if it's Juan Soto, I'm giving up. I'm paying the price that it takes to get Juan Soto. Qualifying offer, to heck with it. But when it comes to Adames or Kim, who are, closer in value than Soto versus like any other outfielder, then it certainly makes a difference, especially because they signed two qualifying offer free agents last year. And so in Snell and Chapman. And so they already faced some penalties, and they would figure to do it again if they signed any other players who received and rejected the qualifying offer. So Steve says, how do the luxury tax penalties of signing players who turn down the qualifying offer affect who you/the Giants front office would want to sign? I'm sure we would still want superstars like Soto, but what about great but not superstar players such as Adames, Santander, Walker? Who's Walker? Oh, Christian Walker? Yeah. Or Corbin Burns. Yeah. So I already mentioned how I feel about Adames because I think there's a good player in Kim who makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons that aren't just Adames versus Kim, who's better for your team. But yeah, like you talk about Corbin Burns, you talk about Christian Walker, Anthony Santander. It definitely comes into play, especially when we get into what are the penalties, which is the next question from NDE The Rock, who says, can you clarify what Andrew Baggerly said about if the Giants sign anyone who got a qualifying offer and how it impacts picks after last year? So yes, I can. And what happened last year was that the Giants paid the luxury tax for the first time since the first time in a long time. I'm trying to see. I think it was like 2018 was the last time that they exceeded the luxury tax, the CBT. And so in so doing, now if they sign any player who received and rejected the qualifying offer, and that includes I had the list. There were 13 qualifying offer recipients. Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, Alex Bregman, Max Fried, Willie Adames, Pete Alonso, Anthony Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, Nick Pivetta, Christian Walker, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, and Nick Martinez. So if the Giants were to sign one of those players, this would be the penalty, given that last year their payroll exceeded the first luxury tax threshold. So because it was their first year exceeding it, actually it doesn't matter if it's your first or not, but this is the rule. A team that exceeded the CBT threshold in the preceding season for signing one qualifying offer free agent will lose its second and fifth highest selections in the following year's draft as well as $1 million from its international bonus pool for the upcoming signing period. If such a team signs multiple qualifying offer free agents, it will forfeit its third and sixth highest picks as well. So if the Giants sign one of those 13 players, say it's Soto, say it's any of them really, but like I'm saying, it's not really worth it I don't think it's really worth it unless it's really an impact player. They would give up their second and fifth highest picks. If they sign two of those 13 players, they would surrender their second, third, fifth, and sixth round picks, which is just not something you want to do, especially because by signing Snell and Chapman last winter, this is what applied to them last year. It says if a team does not receive revenue sharing and did not exceed the CBT salary threshold in the previous season, which the Giants did not going into 2024, it will lose its second highest selection in the following year's draft, as well as $500,000 from its international bonus pool for the upcoming signing period. If one of these teams signs two such players, which they did, it will also forfeit its third highest pick. So the Giants forfeited their second and third round picks in last year, in the 2024 draft. And then if they sign just one qualifying offer free agent this year, it would be second and fifth round automatically, and two would be second, third, fifth, and sixth. So they would get a first round pick, a fourth round pick, and then seventh and onwards. So if they signed two, and if it was one, first round, third round, fourth round, sixth round. Anyway, and plus double the international bonus pool hit. So that's the situation they're in because they exceeded the luxury tax in 2024. And so dipping under it resets that. And so not only do you pay tax on overages, which they did, there's also these penalties when it comes to these qualifying offer free agents. And those are some of the best free agents out there, those 13 players I just listed. There's a reason they got the qualifying offer. Basically, if you're a really good player, as long as you're eligible, you're getting the qualifying offer. It's a 1-year offer worth like the average of the top 125 highest paid players in the game. So it changes every year. This year it's like 21.05 million, something like that. Exactly that, actually. And Juan Soto's not taking a 1-year, $21 million offer. So he'll reject it. And then if you sign him, there's penalties. It's as simple as that. And so anyway, so that was explaining the situation and also explaining why it's a big deal. And you don't really want to do that, especially because you already did it 2 times over last year with your second and third round picks. Doing it again, it's got to be for the right player. And so that's why I think, Ha-Seong Kim makes probably more sense than Willy Adames. But if you have a chance to get Soto, you just say to heck with it. To heck with the second and fifth round picks. Like, it's Juan Soto. So anyway, we will move on to more questions and answers in just a minute. We're going to get to the pitching side of the free agent market, given that the position player side is pretty obvious in terms of who the fits are for the Giants. But the pitching side is not as clear, and there's way more options there too. So we'll get into it in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page and place where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. So I would just head on over and look for the most lopsided, odds I could find. Find the biggest favorite. place my $5 bet and hope to receive with a win that $150 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, here we go. We're going to get to more questions and answers. The next one coming from Matthew, who says, position player free agent market for the Giants seems obvious. Soto, Kim, Adames. I would add first base, which is also, there's Pete Alonso, Christian Walker, Paul Goldschmidt. There's just some obvious potential free agents out there. I would also add outfielders, corner outfielders, beyond Soto, that are not qualifying offer guys, given what we just said. But Matthew makes a good point. On the pitching side, it's just a question. On the pitching side, will they be at the top of the market, middle of the market, or both? And so, yeah, it's worth just pointing out that I would call the pitching side of things the strength of this class. If you take away Soto, it's like clear and obvious that starting pitching is the strength of this free agent class. And there are a lot of options. And the Giants' current starting pitching depth chart is Logan Webb, Robbie Ray, Jordan Hicks, Kyle Harrison, Landon Roop. You've also got guys like Tristan Beck and Hayden Birdsong and others. I'm trying to scroll, and Mason Black, Carson Wisenhunt. So they've got a lot of young pitching and some veterans like Webb and Robbie Ray and Jordan Hicks. And, Kyle Harrison, he already feels like a veteran, but he's still a very young player. So it's a good question, and one I don't know the answer to in terms of where they will shop. I do think the qualifying offer comes into play when you're looking at pitchers who got it. Starting pitchers who are possibly of interest to the Giants. Corbin Burns, Max Fried, and I don't know. Then I think, again, more likely to surrender those picks for impact pitchers and just impact players. So I would put Corbin Burns and Max Fried into that category. So I would kind of throw out, assuming they reject the qualifying offer, which I don't know if they will or won't, but I would kind of throw out Nick Pivetta, Sean Manaea, Luis Severino, and Nick Martinez as targets because they're not stars, and yet they got the qualifying offer. And so I don't see the Giants giving up all it would take to, all they'd have to give up in terms of the draft picks to sign these non-star players. But when it comes to Corbin Burns and Max Fried, I think potentially you can make an exception if I think this is like maybe if you only sign one qualifying offer player. I can't see them signing two. So if they plan a Soto pursuit, then they're not going to, in the meantime, sign a Corbin Burns or a Max Fried. But what other pitchers are out there? As I just scroll through the top list, there's Blake Snell. He comes up right away. He was not eligible to receive the qualifying offer because, first of all, the Giants would have been the team to give it to him, but they couldn't because he's received one before. So there's a top of the market starter that does not have qualifying offer strings attached. And let's see, Max Fried does. And just scrolling through MLB trade rumors list, Jack Flaherty is who they consider the next best starter. He did have a pretty darn good season. Moving on, Yusei Kikuchi. So we're starting to get to the mid-tier here with Yusei Kikuchi. Luis Severino, he did get the qualifying offer. And Nathan Eovaldi, which is more mid-tier. So I don't know. I kind of guess I want to say mid-tier. Like I could see some of these guys that I mentioned in the mid-tier potentially. I forget already who I mentioned. I apologize for that. But like Yusei Kikuchi, I don't know. I don't really see that, honestly, actually. So, Jack Flaherty, they've been linked to Max Fried. I think Max Fried makes a lot of sense. The qualifying offer, though, does throw me off in a big way. I think Corbin Burns makes a lot of sense, but the qualifying offer throws me off in a big way. But if they decide, or if Soto signs elsewhere, that Soto's out of the equation, maybe you make an exception for a Corbin Burns or a Max Fried. But I don't see, if they were to do that, I think that would be it when it comes to signing any of those 13 players who received the qualifying offer. So I don't know. The starting pitching is probably their non-greatest need, but at the same time, Snell, duh. He makes a lot of sense, but if they're limited financially, which I know is going to annoy a lot of people, and you probably want me to expand on that whole topic, and I will at some point. But yeah, Snell makes a lot of sense, and just on paper to return, because I don't know, he was already here and he was really, really good in the second half. Anyway, Bay Area Champ says, who would you target for a starting pitcher if Snell and Corbin Burns are off the table? So I'm going to say Max Fried. I really like Max Fried as a pitcher. Ground ball pitcher, lefty, just seems to fit perfectly with kind of the organizational philosophy, keeping the ball on the ground. Left-handed pitcher to pair with Logan Webb, right-handed pitcher. Georgia, something about Buster Posey being from Georgia, even though Max Fried is from California. So Posey's from Georgia and now in California, and Fried's from California and now in Georgia. So I don't know. I like Max Fried quite a bit. That would just be the name. Roki Sasaki, he might make the most sense of them all. And this is the last question we'll get to today. Paul says, should the Giants try to sign Roki Sasaki? And then in parentheses, do they have a chance? Do they have any chance of signing Roki Sasaki? And the Giants should absolutely try to sign Roki Sasaki. And yeah, they have a chance. I don't know what that chance is, but of course they have a chance. And one of the main reasons that they have a chance, and definitely the main reasons I said they should absolutely try to sign him, is because he is not a normal free agent. It's kind of like when Ohtani came to the States and signed with the Angels. He took on just a rookie contract, basically. He didn't get some mega deal right away because he wasn't yet eligible for that per the international signing rules. And the same is true of Sasaki. He can only get a team's international signing bonus limit, which is somewhere, he'll end up signing for something like $5 million or something and come with a rookie contract, meaning 3 arbitration years and then 3 arbitration years and then free agency, which is exactly what happened with Ohtani. So we're talking a potentially frontline starter for, its international bonus pool money. And there's a limit. I don't know exactly what the Giants have there. It was reduced by their qualifying offer signings last offseason, like I mentioned. That was part of those rules I read through about signing qualifying offer players who rejected it. So anyway, the Dodgers are considered the heavy favorites, but it's not going to come down to money for Sasaki. It's just going to come down to where does he want to play. And it's hard to turn if the Dodgers, I mean, I hate to say it, but if you're Sasaki and you could play with your countrymen, Ohtani and Yamamoto, World Series champions, Southern California, I understand why they're the favorites, but the Giants should definitely try. I mean, he would just fit perfectly and not break the bank at all. So anyway, that is all the time we have for today. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. For your second listen, find Locked On MLB. Baseball guru Sully brings a daily blend of humor and baseball, keeping you updated on every rumor and story throughout the offseason. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out a lot, so thanks in advance. And thank you to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again next week. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.